The air in Government House hung thick as wet silk. On the evening of 14th October 1936, His Excellency Sir Reginald Hawthorne, Governor of the Straits Settlements, was found dead at his mahogany desk, a Webley revolver smoking beside his right hand. Apparent suicide. Yet the leather-bound diary, in which he recorded every secret of the colony, every bribe, every betrayal, every whispered name, had vanished from the locked drawer. Chapter 1. The heat of arrival. The P&O liner, Ranchi, nosed into Singapore harbour at first light on 15th October 1936, sliding between the low green islands like a white swan entering a pond of emeralds. The sun was already a brass coin hammered flat against the sky, and the water steamed gently where it met the hot air. On the upper deck, beneath the striped awning, a small man in an immaculate white suit and Panama hat stood perfectly motionless, as though the humidity itself dared not disturb the crease of his trousers. Hercule Poirot allowed himself one delicate sigh. Tiens, what a furnace! One feels the moisture pressing upon the skin like a jealous lover. Behind him, Captain Arthur Hastings mopped his crimson face with a handkerchief already soaked through. I say, Poirot, how on earth do you manage to look as though you've just stepped out of a Bond Street window? Order and method, mon cher Hastings. Also a little pomade hongroise upon the moustaches. One must preserve the amenities of civilization even when the equator attempts to melt them away. The Ranchi's engines reversed. Chains rattled. The great ship shuddered to silence. From the quay rose the mingled scents of copra, pepper, drying fish, and the faint, sweet rot of the mangroves. Rickshaws clattered. Tamil coolies shouted. A Sikh policeman in a towering turban blew his whistle with imperial indignation. Singapore, the crossroads of the East, was awake and impatient. At the foot of the gangway waited a tall, sunburnt Englishman in the khaki drill of the Straits Settlements Police. His face was the colour of teak, and his moustache the exact yellow of ripe corn. He saluted stiffly. Monsieur Poirot, Inspector Claude Sharp, Singapore CID. His Excellency's staff sent me. There's been an incident at Government House. Poirot's green eyes glittered. An incident, Inspector, or a catastrophe? Sharp hesitated. The Governor, Sir Reginald Hawthorne, was found dead in his study at 7 o'clock yesterday morning. Single gunshot wound to the right temple. His service revolver beside the body. The medical officer has ruled suicide. Has ruled, Poirot repeated softly, or has been instructed to rule. Sharp's jaw tightened. I don't follow. Non? Then permit me to enlighten you. When a man of power dies in a colony, suicide is always the most convenient verdict for those who remain alive. Tell me, Inspector, did Sir Reginald leave a note? Only 4 words on the blotter, written in his own hand. Sharp produced a folded paper from his tunic pocket and read aloud. The little grey cells. Forgive me. A slow, delighted smile curved Poirot's lips. Ah, then it is not suicide. It is an invitation. The Governor knew I was due in Singapore. He has left me his last message. He begs Hercule Poirot to forgive him, for dying, yes, but more importantly, for arranging his death so clumsily that only I would perceive the truth. Hastings gaped. You mean the fellow was murdered? I mean, mon ami, that we are about to step into a drama more highly spiced than any curry in the bazaar. A black Humber staff car bore them up the humid green tunnel of Orchard Road, past shop-houses with 5-foot ways, past Chinese signboards painted in scarlet and gold, past the new Cathay building, rising like a wedding cake of concrete. Poirot sat very straight, gloved hands folded upon his Malacca cane, eyes half closed, yet missing nothing. At the gates of Government House, the Union Jack hung limp in the moist air. Gurkha sentries in pillbox caps presented arms with the silence of cats. The drive curved between rain trees and beds of canna lilies, so red they seemed to bleed in the heat. They were received in the entrance hall by a pale young Englishwoman in secretarial grey. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her hands clasped so tightly the knuckles showed white. "Miss Penelope Grey," Sharp introduced curtly, "Sir Reginald's private secretary." "Monsieur Poirot," she whispered, "thank God you've come. It wasn't suicide. He would never—" Poirot raised one hand. "Mademoiselle, composure. We shall speak later. First, I must see the stage upon which this tragedy was performed." The study occupied the entire eastern corner of the first floor. Teak shutters stood open to catch whatever breeze stirred. Punkahs hung motionless, for the punkahwallah had been given leave to mourn. The room smelled of sandalwood, gun oil, and something metallic. Sir Reginald Hawthorne lay exactly where he had fallen, for the body had not yet been moved pending Poirot's arrival. He had been a tall man, gaunt now, the skin stretched tight across aristocratic bones. The bullet had entered just above the right ear. A dark aureole stained the Kelham rug. His right hand still loosely grasped the Webley .455, barrel resting against the blotter. The 4 words were clearly visible in black ink. The little grey cells. Forgive me. Poirot circled the desk like a fastidious crab. He examined the revolver, the powder burns on the temple, the angle of the wound. He measured distances with a silk tape. He sniffed the air delicately. "Curious," he murmured. "The shot was heard at 11:17 precisely by 3 separate witnesses. The night watchman, Lady Hawthorne in her bedroom, and Miss Grey in the typing pool. Yet the clock on the mantel stopped at 11:12. Why? Sharp shrugged. The bullet must have struck it. Nah, observe. There is no mark upon the clock, and the glass is intact. Someone stopped it deliberately, then restarted it later at the wrong time." He bent over the desk. An inkwell lay overturned, a black river frozen mid-flow across the leather surface. Papers were scattered, memoranda, telegrams, a half-written letter to the Colonial Office beginning "My dear Secretary of State." Poirot's gaze fixed upon the middle drawer. It was locked. "The diary," Sharp said. "Sir Reginald kept a confidential diary, red Morocco leather, gold clasp. Every secret of the colony was in it. Bribes, land deals, names. It has vanished." "Vanished," Poirot echoed. "And the key?" "Always on his watch chain." Sharp pointed to the gold chain still fastened to the dead man's waistcoat. The drawer key was missing. Poirot knelt, heedless of the creases in his trousers, and examined the rug minutely. With tweezers, he lifted a single strand of blonde hair, long, silky, unmistakably European. He placed it in a small envelope. "Lady Hawthorne is blonde," Sharp offered. "Précisément. Yet Lady Hawthorne was at the Tanglin Club until 3 in the morning. 50 witnesses. A miracle of locomotion, n'est-ce pas?" Next he turned to the French windows. They opened onto a veranda overlooking the Padang. A Gurkha sentry stood below, rifle at the slope, face carved from mahogany. Poirot stepped outside. Bougainvillea spilled purple over the balustrade. The air was heavy with frangipani. He examined the teak railing, the tiles, the creepers. Nothing. He returned inside and stood motionless in the centre of the room, eyes closed, moustaches bristling with concentration. "Reconstruct for me the evening," he commanded. Sharp cleared his throat. Sir Reginald dined alone at 8. Lady Hawthorne was at a charity ball. At 9 he dismissed the house staff except Miss Gray, who took dictation until 10:30. At 11 the sentry heard nothing unusual. At 11:17 the shot. The night watchman ran upstairs, found the study locked from the inside, broke in through the veranda, discovered the body. Locked from the inside, Poirot repeated. Yet the key to the diary drawer is missing, the clock is wrong, the ink has run in the wrong direction, and a long blonde hair lies where no blonde woman could have been. And the diary, poof, has taken wings. He opened his eyes suddenly. Tell me, Inspector, who benefits most from Sir Reginald's death? Sharp hesitated. Lady Hawthorne inherits the private fortune, £500,000 sterling. Major Finch, the aide-de-camp, expects promotion to acting governor. The Chinese Tokay Lim Hock An was fighting the governor over opium licenses. Dr. Liang— Ah, yes, Poirot interrupted. The beautiful Dr. S. Rumour says she was once the governor's mistress. And Miss Gray, Sharp finished awkwardly, was devoted? Poirot smiled without humour. 5 suspects, each with motive, each with opportunity apparently impossible. C'est magnifique. He bent once more over the body. Gently, he lifted the dead man's right hand. Beneath the cuff, almost invisible against the pale skin, was a faint bruise shaped like a thumbprint. Observe, he said softly. Someone held this wrist very tightly indeed, after death, when bruising can still occur for a short time. Someone forced the fingers around the revolver. Hastings swallowed. Good Lord! Poirot straightened. Come, we have seen enough for now. The little grey cells, they begin to stir. But first, I must drink something cold, very cold, and green. Then we shall meet these 5 interesting persons who held keys to this room, and perhaps to murder. As they left the study, the Gurkha sentry came to attention with a click of heels. Poirot paused. You were on duty all night, mon brave? Yes, sahib. You saw no one enter or leave by the veranda? No one, sahib. Poirot studied the impassive brown face. Yet someone did. Someone you were ordered not to see. The Gurkha's eyes flickered, just once. Poirot nodded, satisfied. Bon, we understand one another. Outside, the sun beat down like a hammer on an anvil. Somewhere a muezzin began the call to noon prayer, thin and plaintive across the heat. Poirot adjusted his Panama and stepped into the furnace of the day, already certain of one thing. In the suffocating heart of Singapore, a murder most elegant had been committed, and only the little grey cells of Hercule Poirot could unwrap its secret. Chapter 2. The 5 Who Held the Keys. The Long Bar at Raffles Hotel was the one place in Singapore where the 20th century consented to pause and fan itself. At 7 o'clock on the evening of 15th October, 1936, the punkahs were moving again, slow as weary albatross wings, pushing the warm air from one side of the room to the other, with no discernible improvement. Ice clinked in tall glasses. The ceiling fans fought a losing battle against the smoke of Turkish cigarettes and the sweeter scent of clove kretek. Somewhere, a gramophone needle scratched out The Way You Look Tonight, in a languid, almost ironic tempo. Hercule Poirot sat at the best table, the one beneath the portrait of Tiger Raffles himself, with the air of a small, impeccably dressed emperor surveying his court. He had changed into evening clothes of midnight blue, the white waistcoat gleaming like fresh salt. A crème de menthe, bright as a Siamese emerald, rested untouched before him. Captain Hastings, scarlet and damp, nursed a Stengar that was already more water than whisky. Inspector Sharp stood behind them, stiff in mess dress, clearly wishing himself anywhere else. Poirot raised one finger, The signal of a conductor about to bring down the baton. "Bring them in, s'il vous plaît, one by one. We shall watch how they walk, how they sweat, how they lie." The first to arrive was, Lady Cynthia Hawthorne. She entered the bar as though the room had been waiting 100 years for her to cross its threshold. 33 years old, ash blonde, skin the colour of fresh cream despite the equatorial sun, she wore a backless gown of silver lame that looked poured rather than sewn. A single diamond the size of a coffee bean blazed at her throat. Men turned, conversations faltered, and even the punkers seemed to hesitate. She offered Poirot a gloved hand heavy with scent, fracas, sharp and dangerous. "Monsieur Poirot, my husband spoke of you often. He said you were the only living man whose brain he truly feared." Poirot bowed over the hand without quite kissing it. "Madame, I am desolated that our acquaintance must begin beside a grave." "Are we beside a grave, monsieur?" Her smile was winter moonlight on steel. "I had thought we were in a bar." She accepted a champagne cocktail and seated herself with the grace of a leopard arranging its paws. "Tell me, Lady Cynthia," Poirot began gently, "at what hour did you learn of your husband's death?" "The telephone rang at 7:20. Major Finch. He was brusque. I was still dressing for the orphanage ball. I came at once, naturally, and the previous evening. I dined at the Tanglin Club. Bridge until 2, supper until 4. 50 witnesses, give or take a drunken subaltern." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "You left Government House at 7:30. Reginald was already locked in his study with a bottle of black and white and a bad mood. He told me not to wait up. Yet you possess a key to that study." "Had," she corrected. "He changed. Well, let us say he changed the locks 3 months ago. I no longer possess anything of his that matters." She drained the glass in one movement, set it down with a click like a pistol being cocked, and left a red crescent of lipstick on the rim. Major Alistair Finch followed, striding in as though on parade. Her 42, ramrod back, face burnt brick red by 1,000 suns, eyes the pale blue of a man who has stared too long at horizons. His mess jacket was too tight across the chest. The ribbons told of Gallipoli, the northwest frontier, and decorations he never spoke of. He smelled faintly of bay rum and cordite. Finch saluted Poirot as though the detective were a senior officer. "Honoured, sir. Heard about you in Peshawar. Damn clever business, the Maharaja's ruby." Poirot inclined his head. "You were the governor's aide-de-camp, Major?" 12 years, on and off. Knew his habits better than he did himself." "And on the night in question?" "Played billiards with the ADC until 10, then turned in. Quarters are in the East Wing. Heard the shot at 11:17, ran to the study, found the door locked, helped the sentry break in through the veranda. You have a key to the study. Service key. All senior staff do." Poirot leaned and drew forward. "Tell me, Major, why did Sir Reginald change the locks 3 months ago?" Finch's jaw worked. "Security. Rumours of Jap spies. Nothing more." "Yet he did not issue you a new key." A pause. "No, he did not." Finch's left hand, Poirot noticed, trembled very slightly as he reached for his whiskey. Dr. Evelyn Liang arrived next, moving with the silent precision of a hospital corridor at night. Half Chinese, half English, she wore a severe cheongsam of dark green silk that made her skin appear almost translucent. Her hair was drawn back so tightly it seemed to stretch the years from her face. Poirot guessed 35, perhaps 38. A tiny jade Buddha hung at her throat. She bowed. neither Eastern nor Western, but something uniquely her own. Monsieur Poirot, I performed the post-mortem this morning. And your conclusion, Dr. S? Self-inflicted gunshot wound, instantaneous death, no hesitation marks. Poirot studied her hands. Surgeon's hands, steady, immaculate. You were close to Sir Reginald once, I am told. A flicker across the perfect mask. Medical close. I treated him for malaria in 29, nothing more. Yet you kept a key to his study. For emergencies, he was not a well man. Cancer? Poirot asked softly. She did not blink. I suspected. He refused biopsy. And the morphine you prescribed? For pain, he took it sparingly. Poirot produced the tiny vial he had pocketed earlier. This was found in Miss Grey's wastepaper basket. Your fingerprints, Dr. S. For the first time, her composure wavered. I gave it to her for safekeeping. She was distraught. Or perhaps, Poirot murmured, someone wished us to think so. Mr. Lim Hock An entered last among the four, and the bar itself seemed to draw a breath. 60 years old, small, rotund, magnificent in dove-grey silk, with a dragon coiled in gold thread across his chest. A diamond the size of a pea glinted in his front tooth when he smiled. He carried a Panama hat worth more than a policeman's annual salary and smelled of 4711 cologne and immense, quiet power. He greeted Poirot in perfect Oxford-accented English. Little Belgian detective, welcome to the real empire. Here the sun never sets because the prophets never sleep. He accepted a small glass of warm brandy and swirled it like a connoisseur. You quarrelled with Sir Reginald over opium revenue, Poirot began. Quarrel? No, monsieur. We negotiated. He wished to tax my syndicates into bankruptcy. I wished to remain rich. Perfectly normal. You had a key to his study. Had, Lim corrected gently. He took it back last month. Said he no longer trusted wily Orientals. His phrase, not mine. And where were you at 11:17? In my go-down on Clark Quay counting crates of Siamese rice. 20 coolies will swear to it. Poirot smiled. 20 coolies who depend on you for their daily rice, monsieur. Most obliging. Lim's gold tooth flashed. Precisely. Finally, almost unnoticed, Miss Penelope Grey slipped in and took the remaining chair. 28, plain as brown paper, hair the colour of wet sand, eyes magnified behind thick spectacles. Oh. She wore the same grey cotton dress she had worn that morning. Her fingers worried a damp handkerchief into knots. Poirot's voice softened. Mademoiselle, you were perhaps closest to Sir Reginald of all. She flushed crimson. I was his secretary, nothing more. You took dictation until 10:30. Yes, he was agitated. Said he had to finish something before morning. The diary? Her head jerked up. He never let me read it. But that night he locked it in the drawer and said, if anything happens to me, Penny, burn this house down before you let them have it. Tears started again. Poirot leaned forward. And you have a key. He gave me one last year. For filing. I still have it. She fumbled in her handbag and produced a Yale key on a piece of blue ribbon. Sharp stepped forward to take it, but Poirot waved him back. Tell me, mademoiselle, when you heard the shot, where were you? In the typing pool. I ran upstairs. The door was locked. Major Finch and the sentry broke the window. Poirot's eyes never left her face. You are quite sure there was only one shot? She nodded, puzzled. Poirot sat back and surveyed the 5 of them, the beautiful widow, the soldier, the doctor, the merchant, the secretary, like a jeweller, arranging gems of different colours and flaws. 5 keys, he said softly. 5 motives, £500,000, a promotion, a broken heart, a fortune in opium, a diary that could ruin empires. And one diary, that has disappeared as completely as morning mist. He raised his glass. Mesdames et messieurs, you are all lying, some with more elegance than others, but lying nonetheless. One of you entered that study after 10:30. One of you took the diary. One of you fired a shot that was never heard. And one of you left a strand of blonde hair where no blonde hair could be. Lady Cynthia examined her manicure. Major Finch stared straight ahead. Dr. Liang's jade Buddha rose and fell with her breathing. Mr. Lim smiled his golden smile. Miss Grey began to cry silently. Poirot drained the crème de menthe in one delicate sip. "Tomorrow," he said, "the little grey cells will begin their work in earnest. Bonsoir." He rose. The punkahs kept moving. The ice melted. And somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled over the strait, slow and inevitable as judgment. Chapter 3. The blood-stained page. At 6:30 the following morning, before the sun had fully cleared the rooftops of Kampong Glam, a terrified Malay houseboy burst into the breakfast room of Government House, clutching a single sheet of paper as though it were on fire. Tuan Poirot, in the billiard room, under the table, Ada Dara. Poirot, already dressed with his usual perfection, pale grey suit, black tie with pearl pin, spats as white as a colonel's smile, laid down his silver coffee cup and followed the boy at a brisk trot. Hastings' mouthful of kaya toast scrambled after them. Inspector Sharp arrived moments later, hair still wet from a hurried shower. The billiard room smelled of chalk, cedar, and the ghost of cigars. A green-shaded lamp still glowed above the table. The sheet lay half-hidden beneath one of the leather pockets, crumpled as though someone had tried to stuff it into the cushion, and failed. Poirot knelt with the stiffness of a man who dislikes creasing his trousers before 8 o'clock. He produced a pair of tweezers and lifted the paper by one corner. It was a page torn from the governor's diary. Thick cream stock, gold-edged, unmistakably the missing volume. Across the centre sprawled the governor's impatient scrawl in violet ink, 15 till September. LHA demands 200,000 guilders, or he exposes the Johor concession. C refuses to leave me even after everything. EL knows far too much about the morphine nights. PG cries in the typing pool when she thinks no one hears. I am cornered. God help me, I am cornered. But what made the houseboy scream was the dark rust-brown stain that soaked the lower third of the page and had dried in stiff, crackling ridges. "Blood!" Hastings breathed. "Presumably," said Sharp, already reaching for an evidence envelope. Poirot held the page to the light, then brought it delicately to his nose. He sniffed once, twice, and his moustaches quivered with theatrical disdain. "Chicken blood, mon cher inspector. From the kitchen, no more than 12 hours old. Observe the faint yellow of egg yolk at the edge. Someone dipped their fingers in the cook's supper and pressed them here with melodramatic zeal." Sharp's face darkened. "You're saying the murderer planted this?" "I'm saying, mon ami, that the murderer wishes us to believe Lim Hock, and blackmailed Sir Reginald to death. A little too obliging, no?" Poirot turned the page over. On the reverse, in the same violet ink but a different, more hurried hand, someone had added a single line. "The little grey cells will see through you." Hastings gasped. "Good Lord, Poirot! The governor wrote that after he was dead." "Impossible," Poirot replied calmly. "He wrote it while very much alive, probably on the evening of the 14th. Someone tore this page out later, stained it with poultry, and hid it where a houseboy doing early sweeping would be sure to find it. The addition on the back is meant to appear as though Sir Reginald addressed me from beyond the grave. Touching, but crude." He folded the page with tweezers and slipped it into a fresh envelope. Still, Sharp muttered, Lim's initials are there in black and violet. 200,000 guilders is a powerful motive. Powerful enough to make him the perfect scapegoat, Poirot said. Come, we shall test how perfect. They found Lim Hock An at his go-down on Boat Quay, supervising the loading of gunny sacks stamped Siam No. 1 rice. He wore a white linen suit and a smile that revealed the famous gold tooth. "Detective San," he greeted cheerfully, "you bring me a love letter from a dead man." Poirot handed him the page in its envelope. Lim read it without blinking. "Very artistic. Unfortunately for your theory, I never asked for 200,000 guilders. I asked for 300,000 Straits dollars, payable in silver, and he agreed. We shook hands on the 12th. Ask his banker, Mr. van der Hoven, at the Nederlandse Handelmaatschappij." Sharp bristled. "Then why does the diary say because?" Lim interrupted gently. "Someone wishes you to arrest me before you discover who really needed Sir Reginald silent. May I keep this charming souvenir?" "No," Poirot said, taking it back. "It is evidence of a mind that grows desperate." As they left, Poirot paused beneath a stack of crates. "Tell me, monsieur, do you slaughter chickens on the premises?" Lim laughed until the coolies stared. "Every morning for the workers' curry. You are welcome to inspect the coop." Poirot bowed. "Another time, perhaps." Back at Government House, Poirot summoned the cook, a wizened Hainanese named Arsène, who trembled before the little Belgian as though expecting to be boiled in his own stock. "Yes, Tuan. Last night one chicken missing from cage. Thought a Pontianak took it." "Or a murderer," Poirot murmured. "Show me the chopping block." The block was still stained with fresh blood. Beside it lay a single long blonde hair caught on a splinter. Sharp stared. "Lady Cynthia." "Or someone who possesses one of Lady Cynthia's hairs," Poirot corrected. "A hairbrush, perhaps. A comb left carelessly on a dressing table. Our murderer is thorough, but not thorough enough." He straightened suddenly. "The page was torn out, not cut. Examine the diary when we recover it. The 14th and 15th will be missing together. The stain hides the perforation marks. Clever." That afternoon, Poirot interviewed the Gurkha sentry again, this time on the veranda where the man had stood all night. "You heard nothing at 11:17 except the shot?" The Gurkha's eyes were steady. "Only one shot, Sahib." "And before that?" Silence. Poirot spoke softly in Nepali, surprising the soldier. "Your Jemadar will not punish loyalty, but he will punish silence when a British officer has been murdered. Speak!" The Gurkha's voice dropped to a whisper. "At 10 minutes to 11, Major Finch Sahib came to me, gave me $5, said, 'Look toward the sea for 10 minutes, Havildar. Important military business.' I obeyed." Poirot nodded slowly. "You have done right to tell me. Your honour is intact." As the Bosso sun sank behind the go-downs in a furnace of crimson, Poirot stood alone in the billiard room, cue in hand, staring at the pocket where the page had been found. "First a locked room," he murmured to the green baize, "then a vanished diary. Now a forged page soaked in chicken blood and bearing my own motto. Someone tries very hard to make Hercule Poirot chase shadows." He chalked the cue, bent, and struck the white ball with delicate precision. It kissed the red, rebounded, and dropped neatly into the pocket. "But shadows," he said, smiling at the click of ivory, "have no weight, and the truth, mes amis, is very heavy indeed." Somewhere in the house a clock struck 6. the heat pressed closer. And in the gathering dusk, the little grey cells began to arrange their battle order. Chapter 4. The Woman Who Did Not Cry. The garden of Government House at twilight was a place of conspiracy. Frangipani released its heavy sweetness like a drug. Somewhere, a nightjar began its mechanical whir, and the sky turned the colour of a fresh bruise. Hercule Poirot waited on the marble bench beneath the traveller's palm, gloved hands resting on his Malacca cane, looking for all of the world like a well-dressed toad who had decided to become a philosopher. Lady Cynthia Hawthorne appeared exactly at 8, moving along the gravel path with the confidence of a woman who knows every eye in Singapore would follow her if it could. She wore a dinner gown of black chiffon, cut daringly low, and a single strand of pearls that gleamed like tiny moons against her throat. In the half-light, her skin had the luminous pallor of gardenias. She did not sit at once. Instead, she lit a cigarette with a gold lighter, inhaled, and let the smoke drift from her nostrils like incense. "You wish to speak privately, Monsieur Poirot? How deliciously compromising." Poirot inclined his head. "Madam, I wish to speak of murder. Compromise is the least of your worries." She laughed softly and finally seated herself, crossing legs that had ruined more reputations than the stock exchange crash. "Very well. Ask your questions. I have nothing to hide except the usual small sins." "Bon, let us begin with the largest sin of all. You hated your husband." "Hate is such a warm word," she said, studying the tip of her cigarette. "I was bored by him. Boredom is colder." "Yet you refused to grant him the divorce he begged for in July." "Divorce is expensive, monsieur, and messy. Reginald still had uses." "Financial uses? Among others," she smiled without warmth. "A woman in my position needs a flag to sail under. His Excellency's wife enjoys certain immunities." Poirot leaned forward slightly. "On the night of the 14th, you left Government House at 7:30. You were seen at the Tanglin Club by dozens of witnesses from 8 o'clock onward. The shot was heard at 11:17. 12 miles in this traffic in 1936 is impossible. Yet you have no alibi for the crucial half-hour between leaving here and arriving there." Lady Cynthia's eyes narrowed. "I stopped at the Seaview Hotel for a drink, alone. One does not always require an audience." "Convenient," Poirot murmured, "and inconvenient for you that the barman at the Seaview remembers no such visit." For the first time the mask slipped. Something feral flashed across her face. "You are impertinent." "I am thorough. Tell me, madame, why did your husband change the locks on his study 3 months ago?" She flicked ash onto the perfect lawn. "He had become paranoid. Thought everyone was stealing his precious secrets." "Including his wife? Especially his wife." Poirot produced a small envelope and slid out the long blonde hair found on the rug. "This was beneath his body. Your colour exactly." She barely glanced at it. "I shed, monsieur, like a Persian cat. The servants will tell you my hair is everywhere. Yet not, curiously, in the study since the locks were changed." Lady Cynthia crushed the cigarette beneath her satin heel. "If you are accusing me, I accuse no one, yet. I merely observe that you are the only suspect whose alibi is unbreakable, and therefore the most suspicious of all." She rose in one fluid movement. "Then observe this, little man. I did not kill Reginald. Someone saved me the trouble." She walked away down the path, the black chiffon floating behind her like a sail of mourning. At the corner she paused. "Oh, one more thing. If you want tears, go to Penelope Grey. She has enough for both of us. Poirot remained on the bench long after she had vanished. Fireflies drifted around him like slow green sparks. He spoke aloud to the darkness, beautiful, ruthless, and lying with the ease of long practice. But is she lying about the murder? That is the question. Later, in the cool of his bedroom, windows wide to catch the land breeze that never quite arrived, Poirot arranged his notes on the writing desk with geometrical precision. He drew 5 columns: Lady C, motive, freedom plus fortune major F, motive promotion plus debts, Dr. L, motive, mercy, past love, Lim H.A, motive, business ruined PG, motive, devotion absolute. Across the page he wrote in red ink, time is wrong. He underlined it 3 times. At 11 o'clock he summoned Hastings, who was attempting to cool himself with a whiskey soda and a copy of the Singapore Free Press. Mon ami, tomorrow we will perform a small experiment. We will stop the study clock at precisely 11:12 and see who notices. Also, we will borrow Lady Cynthia's hairbrush. Hastings gaped. Borrow her! Good Lord, Poirot! She'll have you horsewhipped. Possibly. But first, she will have to catch me. Before retiring, Poirot stood at the window staring across the Padang toward the invisible sea. Somewhere out there, the mail steamer to Europe was, already loading mailbags full of polite lies and careful omissions. He spoke very softly, as though the night itself were listening. She did not cry, Hastings, not one tear. A woman who has just lost £500,000 and 30 years of social position, and not one tear. That is either supreme control or supreme indifference. He turned from the window, eyes glittering in the lamplight. Tomorrow the little grey cells will demand an accounting. And someone, somewhere, will discover that indifference can be very expensive indeed. In the distance, thunder rumbled over Johore, slow and threatening, like the sound of approaching justice. Chapter 5. The Secret of the Morphine Bottle. The General Hospital stood on the sepoy lines like a white fortress against fever and death. At 10 the next morning, the corridors already stank of carbolic, wet plaster, and the sweetish rot of gangrene. Dr. Evelyn Liang received Poirot in her private laboratory. A cool room of glass and steel, where rows of organs floated in formalin like pale fish in murky seas. She had changed into a starched white coat that made her look even more severe. Only the jade Buddha at her throat betrayed any colour. You wish to discuss morphine, Monsieur Poirot? I wish to discuss murder, Dr. S. Morphine is merely the weapon that almost was. She gestured to a steel chair. Poirot sat, placing his hat precisely on his knees. You diagnosed terminal cancer in Sir Reginald. I suspected it. He refused examination. The symptoms were classic: cachexia, night pain, the morphine hunger in his eyes. Yet the post-mortem you yourself performed revealed no malignancy. Her fingers tightened on a glass slide. Then I was wrong. Or the disease was occult. Or, Poirot said softly, the body on your table was not Sir Reginald Hawthorne at all. The silence that followed was so complete that the bubbling of a distillation flask sounded like thunder. She recovered first. That is grotesque. Grotesque, perhaps, but possible. A man with enemies could arrange a double. A derelict, a coolie dying of tuberculosis, shot in the face, dressed in his clothes, placed at his desk. The diary vanishes, the colony mourns, and Sir Reginald sails away on the next Dutch liner with a new passport and a shaved head. Dr. Liang laughed, a short, brittle sound. You have read too many novels, monsieur. No? I have read too many death certificates signed by beautiful women who once loved the deceased. Colour rose in her cheeks. I ceased loving Reginald Hawthorne years ago, when he married Lady Cynthia instead of you, when he chose empire over everything human. Yes. Poirot produced the tiny blue vial he had taken from Government House. This contained morphine tartrate, 1 2-grain tablets, enough for a peaceful exit. Your fingerprints are on it. It was found in Miss Gray's wastebasket. I gave it to Penelope weeks ago. Reginald sometimes asked her to crush tablets into his whiskey when the pain was bad. She was terrified of overdose. Yet she kept an empty bottle? Penelope keeps everything. She's sentimental. Poirot rolled the vial between his fingers. Tell me about the night of the 14th. I was here until 9, signing reports. Then I went to the Chinese Medical Hall in Kampong Glam for herbs. After that, home to my flat in Emerald Hill. Alone. Alone, Poirot repeated, like Lady Cynthia of the Seaview Bar. Alone is the perfect alibi when one has no need of witnesses. He rose and walked to the specimen shelves. A human heart floated in a jar, valves pale and delicate. Tell me, Dr. S., if you had wished to grant your former lover a merciful death, would you have used a Webley revolver to the temple? She flinched as though he had struck her. Never. Then why does someone wish me to believe you did? He turned, eyes suddenly sharp as scalpels. Because you are the only person in Singapore who could have signed a false death certificate without question. And because someone very clever knows that I will tear the colony apart before I allow a beautiful woman to hang for a mercy she did not commit. For the first time her mask cracked completely. Tears, genuine and shocking, filled her dark eyes. I wanted him dead, she whispered. God help me. I prayed for it, but I did not kill him. Poirot's voice softened. Then help me find who did. She wiped her eyes with the heel of her hand, suddenly very young. There was something. A week ago, he came here at midnight, distraught. Said he had discovered a traitor in the inner circle, someone selling fortress plans to the Japanese. He was going to expose them in the diary and send it sealed to the colonial office. He begged me to keep a second vial of morphine in case the traitor struck first. I refused. I told him to go to the police. He laughed, said the police were part of it. Poirot's moustaches bristled. He named no name. Only initials in the diary. He said the proof was complete. Poirot bowed. You have been most courageous, Dr. S. One last thing. The bruise on Sir Reginald's wrist. Post-mortem bruising requires the heart to have stopped very recently. How long? Less than 5 minutes. Merci. As he reached the door, she called after him, voice trembling. If he is still alive, monsieur, tell him I forgive him. Poirot paused. If he is alive, Dr. S., he does not deserve your forgiveness, but I will tell him. Outside in the blinding corridor, Hastings was waiting, fanning himself with a pathology report. Well? Poirot's eyes were very bright. 2 possibilities now exist, mon ami. Either Sir Reginald was murdered to silence treason, or Sir Reginald staged his own death to escape the consequences of discovering treason. In either case, the morphine bottle is the key. That almost turned. He tapped the vial against his teeth thoughtfully. And someone very much wants us to believe Dr. Liang is that key. Someone who knows that Poirot will never condemn a woman for an act of love. Thunder growled over the hospital roof, closer now, heavy with the promise of rain that would never quite cool the air. Chapter 6. The Tauke's Gold Boat Quay. At noon was a furnace of noise and smell. Sacks of rice rose in pyramids higher than a man's head. Coolies bent double under loads that would crush an ox. The river stank of diesel, durian, and the black mud of 1,000 monsoons. Hercule Poirot, immaculate in cream shantung, picked his way along the go-down wharf as delicately as a cat through a fish market. Mr. Lim Hock, and received him in an office above the river. a room of teak and ivory where punkahs moved like tired ghosts, and a brass Buddha smiled with the complacency of one who has never paid import duty. The Tauke sat behind a desk carved from a single block of camphor wood, wearing a suit of dove-grey silk and the expression of a man who has already won the argument. "Welcome, Detective San. You come to arrest me for murdering a man who owed me money. How very Belgian." Poirot seated himself without invitation, placing his hat precisely on his knees. "I come, monsieur, to eliminate the perfect suspect. You are too obvious. That is your genius." Lim's gold tooth flashed. "Flattery! From Hercule Poirot. I am honoured. Tell me about the 200,000 guilders." Lim waved a manicured hand. "An old debt. The Johor concession. Bauxite, rubber, a little opium on the side. Sir Reginald signed away his soul for it in 1932. When he tried to renounce the agreement, I reminded him that Chinese memories are longer than English consciences." He opened a lacquered drawer and produced a bundle of promissory notes tied with red silk. Each bore the governor's impatient signature and the seal of the chartered bank. Poirot examined them carefully. The paper was crisp, the ink black and fresh. "Curious," he murmured. "These are dated the 16th of October, the day after Sir Reginald died." Lim's smile did not waver. "A clerical error. My clerk is new, from Amoy. They write dates backwards there." "Or," Poirot said softly, "these notes were forged yesterday to prove that Sir Reginald's death ruined you. A man who loses everything has the perfect motive for murder, no? Especially when everyone expects the Chinese Tokay to be the villain." Lim leaned back, fingers steepled. "You disappoint me, monsieur. I thought you would see deeper. I see very deep indeed. I see a man who wishes to be arrested, quickly, quietly, before the real traitor is uncovered." The gold tooth vanished. For the first time, Lim's eyes were cold as river stones. "You speak of treason?" "I speak of fortress plans sold to the Japanese. I speak of coded telegrams to Tokyo via the Kabuki Maru. I speak of a diary that contained names, dates, bribes in yen. Sir Reginald discovered everything. He was preparing to expose the traitor when he died." Lim's voice dropped to a whisper. "And you think I am that traitor?" "No. You are the perfect smokescreen. Someone wishes me to chase the Chinese devil, while the English devil laughs." Poirot laid the forged notes on the desk like a hand of cards. "These are excellent forgeries. The signature is perfect, almost too perfect. Observe the slight tremor in the R that Sir Reginald developed after his malaria in 34. Your forger studied well." Lim rose slowly. "Leave now, little man, before I have you thrown into the river." Poirot did not move. "One more thing. The chicken blood on the diary page came from your kitchen, yes? Your cook is Hainanese. Only Hainanese cooks behead chickens with one stroke. The blood was still warm when it was smeared. Someone in this go-down helped the murderer." Lim's hand moved toward a bronze gong. Poirot raised his cane. "Strike that gong, and half Singapore will know Lim Hock and fears Hercule Poirot. Is that what you wish?" The hand paused. Poirot continued, voice silk over steel. "You are innocent of murder, monsieur, but you are not innocent of hate. You hated Sir Reginald enough to let him die rather than warn him. That is a sin of omission the Buddha will judge." Lim sank back into his chair as though suddenly very old. "He blocked my people's future," he said quietly. "The opium reform would have saved thousands. He called us clever Asiatics who must be kept in our place. Let him rot." "But he did not rot," Poirot said. "He was shot by someone who feared exposure more than death. Someone close, someone with a key." He rose. "You will receive a summons as a witness, not a defendant. Cooperate, and your opium reforms may yet pass. Obstruct, and I will see you ruined before the next moon." Lim's smile returned. Thinner now. You bargain like a Chinese, Detective-san. Precision, monsieur. I bargain like Poirot. As he descended the go-down stairs, Poirot paused beside a stack of crates stamped in Japanese characters. One had been recently opened. Inside nestled straw and the faint smell of machine oil. He lifted a small wooden box. Inside lay a single brass shell casing, 5.5 caliber, British Army issue. Poirot slipped it into his pocket. Upstairs, Lim Hok-an stared at the forged notes for a long time. Then he opened a second drawer and took out a small photograph. Himself and Sir Reginald in 1928, arms around each other laughing outside the old Johore Palace. He struck a match and held it to the corner. The flames devoured the past. Outside, the river continued its slow, dirty flow toward the sea, carrying secrets no one would ever recover. Chapter 7. The Secretary's Confession. Midnight at Government House was never truly silent. The padang stretched away like black velvet under a thin moon. Cicadas rasped in the Angsana trees. Somewhere, a night watchman coughed and spat. Inside the guest wing, the air hung heavy as wet lint, and the punkah over Poirot's bed had given up hours ago. He sat fully dressed at the writing desk, green-shaded lamp pooling light on his notes, when the knock came, 3 timid taps, as though the knocker feared the door itself might bite. Poirot opened it without a word. Miss Penelope Grey stood in the corridor, clutching a small handbag to her chest like a shield. Her face was the colour of old parchment. Her spectacles were fogged with tears or humidity. He could not tell which. "Monsieur Poirot," she whispered, "I can't bear it any longer. I killed him." He stood aside. She entered as though walking to the gallows, perching on the edge of the chair he offered, as if expecting it to vanish. Poirot closed the door softly and leaned against it, arms folded. "Tell me, mademoiselle." The words came in a rush, tumbling over one another. He was in such pain, the cancer eating him away. That night, after dictation, he called me back, said he couldn't go on, begged me to end it. He gave me the little revolver I kept in my desk for protection against burglars. Said 1 shot, quick, behind the ear. I cried. I said no. He took my hand and put the gun in it, closed my fingers around it. I shut my eyes and pulled the trigger. She opened the handbag with shaking fingers and laid a nickel-plated .32 revolver on the blotter. Mother-of-pearl grips, 6 inches long, the sort of toy a nervous spinster buys in a bazaar. Poirot picked it up delicately, sniffed the barrel. "This weapon has not been fired in months, mademoiselle. The oil is old, the cylinder is clean." Her mouth opened, soundless. He continued gently. "Sir Reginald was killed with a service 4.55 Webley, massive, brutal, military. This little thing would have annoyed him, not killed him." She stared at the gun as though it had betrayed her. "Then, I dreamed it?" "No. Someone persuaded you that you did it. Look." He took her wrist, thin, bird-like, and turned it toward the lamp. Dark bruises ringed it like a bracelet, 4 fingers and a thumb. "These are fresh. Someone held you very hard indeed while they forced this confession. Someone who needed a scapegoat before the net closed." She began to shake. "Major Finch, he came to my room last night. Said if I confessed, Lady Cynthia would be safe. The scandal kept quiet. Said the governor had suffered enough disgrace. He twisted my arm until I agreed to write the note. He gave me back my gun. Said to bring it to you tonight." Poirot's eyes kindled. "And the shot you heard?" "One," she said firmly. "Only one, at 11:17. I looked at the clock in the typing pool." "Exactly." Poirot's voice was velvet over steel. "But there were 2 shots, mademoiselle. The first, silenced, deadly, at 10:52. when the traitor believed himself safe. The second, loud, theatrical, fired into the ceiling at 11:17 to fix the time of death after the clock had been advanced 5 minutes. She gasped, 2 shots, but I would have heard. You heard only the one meant for your ears. The first was muffled, perhaps by a pillow, perhaps by the new German silencers that are finding their way even here. The second established the false timeline. He released her wrist and paced the small room, hands clasped behind his back. Think, mademoiselle. After the first shot, the real shot, the murderer had 25 minutes. Time to arrange the body, force the fingers around the Webley, spill the ink in the wrong direction, plant the chicken blood page, hide the diary. Then, pfft, the second shot to summon witnesses. Penelope Grey pressed both hands to her mouth. Who would do such a thing? Someone who knew every detail of the household routine. Someone who could order the Gurkha to look away. Someone who profited enormously from Sir Reginald's death and feared exposure far more than hanging. She whispered, Major Finch. Poirot did not answer directly. Instead, he opened the French window and stepped onto the narrow balcony. The night smelled of rain that would not come. Tell me one more thing. On the evening of the 14th, did you see anyone near the study clock? She hesitated. Yes. At 10:40, when I left after dictation, Major Finch was in the corridor. He asked if the governor needed anything else. He was polishing something, a brass object. I thought it was his lighter. Poirot's moustaches quivered. Brass! Like the shell casing I found in Lim's go-down. Planted, of course, but the Major is careless with details. He turned back to her, suddenly brisk. You will go to your room now, lock the door, and speak to no one until I come for you tomorrow. You are in great danger, mademoiselle. The murderer knows you are the weakest link. She rose, trembling. What will happen to me? Nothing, Poirot said firmly, because Hercule Poirot protects the innocent. And you, my child, are very innocent indeed. At the door she paused. He loved me, you know. Not like a man loves a woman, more like a father who never had children. I would have died for him. I know, Poirot said softly, and someone very nearly made you die because of it. After she left, he stood motionless for a long time, staring at the little revolver. Then he opened his notebook and wrote in small, neat script, Motive, treason plus promotion. Method, silenced shot 10:52 plus. Staged shot 11.17. Mistake, bruises on PG's wrist. Next, confront the Major at dawn. Outside, the moon slipped behind a cloud, and the tropical night pressed closer, waiting for the storm that must finally break. Chapter 8. The Gurkha's kukri dawn on the Padang was a slow bleeding of rose and gold across the wet grass. The rain that had threatened for days had finally broken during the night. A brief, violent torrent that left the air cleaner, but no cooler. Steam rose from the earth like the breath of buried dragons. Hercule Poirot walked alone toward the cricket pavilion, shoes gleaming despite the mud, Malacca cane tapping a measured rhythm. The Gurkha sentry stood at the edge of the field exactly where he had stood on the night of the murder. Rifle at the slope, face carved from the same teak as the rain trees, eyes fixed on some middle distance only he could see. His kukri hung at his belt, the curved blade catching the first rays of sun like a sliver of frozen lightning. Poirot stopped 3 paces away. Jai Mahakali, Havildar, he said quietly in Nepali. Ayo Gorkhali. The soldier's eyes flicked to him, surprise breaking the mask for an instant. He came to attention with a click that echoed across the empty field. Sahib speaks our tongue. A little. Enough to know that a Gurkha's loyalty is stronger than steel, but even steel can be bent by treason. The sentry's jaw tightened. Poirot continued, voice soft as falling ash. On the night of the 14th, you looked away from the veranda for 10 minutes. You accepted $5 from Major Finch Sahib. You saw nothing, but you have not slept since, have you? The kukri at your side feels heavier each morning. The Gurkha's hand moved unconsciously to the hilt. I am not here to shame you, Poirot said. I am here to free you. Speak the truth, and your honour remains clean. Lie, and you carry the stain forever. For a long moment, only the morning birds broke the silence. Miners quarrelling in the angsanas, a quail calling its two-note lament. Then the soldier spoke, voice low, each word dragged out like a thorn. Major Finch came at 10:45. He was not himself. Eyes wild like a man with fever. He gave me $5, English sovereigns, not paper. Said, look to the sea, Havildar. 10 minutes, military business of the Empire. He pressed something into my hand, brass, warm from his pocket. A spent cartridge case. Said if anyone asked, I found it on the veranda after the shot. Poirot's eyes gleamed. You still have it? The Gurkha reached into his breast pocket and produced a small cloth bundle. Inside lay a 4.45 shell casing, brass dulled by handling. The primer struck dead centre. This is from the silenced shot, Poirot murmured. The first shot at 10:52. He wanted you to plant it later, yes? To confuse the timing. The soldier nodded once. There is more, he said. After the loud shot, the second shot, I ran to the veranda with the night watchman. The Major was already there, breaking the window, but he was not out of breath. He had been waiting, and when he thought no one watched, he took something from the desk, a red book, and slipped it inside his tunic. The diary. Poirot closed his fist around. The cartridge case. You have carried this poison long enough, mon brave. Go now to Inspector Sharp. Tell him everything. Your Jemadar will understand. A Gurkha does not betray his salt. The soldier hesitated. The Major Sahib, he is British officer. He is traitor, Poirot said simply. And traitors have no regiment, no flag, no honour. The Gurkha came to attention, saluted with the kukri in a motion as old as the hills of Nepal, then turned and marched away across the wet grass, footprints filling slowly with water. Poirot watched him go, then opened his hand and studied the brass casing. In the rising light, he could see the faint scratch marks where a silencer had been attached. German manufacture, rare in Singapore. He slipped it into his waistcoat pocket beside the one he had found in Lim's go-down. Identical. 2 shots, he said to the empty morning. 2 cartridge cases, one silenced, one loud. The first to kill, the second to deceive, and the diary taken to hide the proof of treason. He turned back toward Government House, cane tapping faster now. In the breakfast room, Hastings was attacking a plate of eggs and bacon with the desperation of a man who believes cholesterol is an Old Testament prophet. Poirot, where the devil have you been? It's barely 6. Mon ami, the net closes. The Gurkha has spoken. Major Finch is our man. Hastings's fork froze halfway to his mouth. Good Lord, are you certain? As certain as the sunrise. He arranged the false timeline, planted the red herrings, forged the promissory notes, forced poor Miss Gray's confession. He even used Lim's go-down to hide evidence, knowing we would suspect the Chinese first. Classic misdirection. But why? The fellow's a decorated officer. Because he has been selling secrets to the Japanese for 2 years. Fortress plans, troop movements, the entire Singapore strategy. Sir Reginald discovered it on the 13th, confronted him. Finch killed him to silence him forever. Hastings whistled. And the diary? Contains every detail. Finch has it hidden, probably in his quarters. We must move quickly before he destroys it." Poirot paused at the door. "Summon everyone to the study at 9 o'clock. Inspector Sharp, the suspects, the staff, even the Gurkha. Today, mes amis, Hercule Poirot will stage his own little drama of revelation." As he left the room, the morning sun struck full across the padang, turning the wet grass to a field of scattered diamonds. Somewhere, a bugle sounded reveille from Fort Canning, thin and brave against the coming heat. The storm had broken in the night. Now the air was clear, and justice, like the kukri, was about to fall. Chapter 9. The Reconstruction. At 9 o'clock precisely, the study of Government House was once again the centre of the storm. The French windows stood open to the veranda. The punkahs had been set in motion for the occasion, stirring the heavy air like weary conspirators. Every detail had been restored exactly as it was on the night of the 14th. The inkwell overturned, papers scattered, the Webley revolver placed just so. The clock on the mantel stopped at 11:12. Hercule Poirot stood in the middle of the room like a small lethal orchestra conductor. Around him, arranged in a semicircle, sat the 5 suspects: Inspector Sharp, Captain Hastings, the Gurkha sentry rigid as a carved temple guardian, and Miss Penelope Grey, pale but composed in a fresh cotton dress. Major Alistair Finch occupied the governor's own chair behind the desk, at Poirot's courteous insistence. His face was the colour of old ash. Sweat gleamed on his upper lip despite the punkahs. "Mesdames et messieurs," Poirot began, voice silky, "we are here to reconstruct a murder most ingenious. Not suicide, never suicide. Murder, committed for the oldest reason in the world, treason, a collective intake of breath." Lady Cynthia's cigarette paused halfway to her lips. Dr. Liang's jade Buddha rose and fell rapidly. Lim Hock An's gold tooth flashed in a brief, humourless smile. Poirot continued. Sir Reginald Hawthorne discovered on the 13th of October that someone very close to him had been selling the defences of Singapore, the impregnable fortress, to the Japanese Empire. Plans, troop dispositions, minefields in the Straits, payment in yen, routed through Shanghai. The diary contained every detail: dates, amounts, coded telegrams. Exposure would mean hanging for high treason. His gaze swept the room and settled on Finch. "Major Alistair Finch, you have sat in that chair for 12 years as aide-de-camp. You knew every secret. You also knew that your gambling debts at the Tanglin Club exceeded 20,000 Straits dollars. The Japanese paid well for betrayal." Finch's hand twitched toward his tunic pocket. The Gurkha's kukri moved a fraction of an inch. "On the 14th, Poirot said, Sir Reginald confronted you here in this room at 10:40. You had come ostensibly to ask if he needed anything else. In reality, to silence him forever. You carried a silenced Luger, German, with the new Maxim suppressor. At 10:52, while the Gurkha looked away at your order, you fired once, through a pillow to muffle any residual sound. Sir Reginald fell forward. Poirot moved to the desk, demonstrating with theatrical precision. You then had 25 minutes, luxurious minutes. You arranged the body backward, forced the dead fingers around his own Webley. You spilled the ink. But here is the mistake that condemned you. The ink ran toward the edge of the desk, yet the body fell backward. Ink does not run uphill, Major. And in this humidity, real ink would have dried slowly. Yours was still wet because the suicide happened after the spill." Finch's voice was a croak. "Nonsense! The servants— No! You advanced the clock 5 minutes from 11:12 to 11:17. Then, at the exact moment the altered clock showed 11:17, you fired the Webley into the ceiling. There, See the bullet hole repaired yesterday. The loud shot summoned witnesses. You broke the veranda window from inside to simulate a locked room. You planted the chicken blood diary page to incriminate Mr. Lim. You forged promissory notes to give him motive. You planted the silenced casing in his go-down. You even forced poor Miss Grey to confess, bruising her wrist in your enthusiasm. Miss Grey gave a small, broken cry. Poirot's voice hardened. You took the diary, red morocco, gold clasp, and hid it in the one place no one would search. The grand piano in the ballroom, beneath the sounding board. We recovered it at dawn. He produced the diary from his briefcase and laid it on the desk like a death warrant. Finch surged to his feet, face contorted. You little Belgian prig, He lunged for the French windows. The Gurkha moved faster than thought. The kukri flashed in a silver arc and buried itself in the doorframe inches from Finch's ear. The Major froze. Traitor, the Gurkha said simply, in English for the first time. Inspector Sharp stepped forward with handcuffs. Finch's shoulders sagged. Suddenly, he was an old man in a too-tight uniform. Lady Cynthia was the first to speak, voice like breaking ice. So my husband died a hero after all. Poirot turned to her almost gently. Non, madame. He died because he finally found the courage he had lacked for years. That is why he wrote my motto with his last strength. The little grey cells, forgive me. Forgive him for weakness, for compromise, for waking too late. But he woke. And for that, yes, he died a hero. Dr. Liang rose, eyes shining. Then the cancer? A fiction. To explain his distraction while he gathered evidence. The morphine was for genuine pain, malaria recurring. You were meant to be suspected of mercy-killing. Lim Hock An bowed from the waist. My congratulations, Detective San. You have given me back my future. The reforms will pass now. Miss Grey was weeping silently into her handkerchief. Hastings patted her shoulder with awkward English kindness. Poirot addressed them all. The little grey cells, they do not lie. They have spoken. Justice is served, not perfectly, for justice is human, but served nonetheless. He turned to Finch, who stood handcuffed between two constables. You arranged everything with brilliance, Major, but you forgot one thing. In the tropics, ink behaves differently. A small thing. But murder, mon ami, is decided by small things. As Finch was led away, the sun broke through the clouds for the first time in days, flooding the study with sudden, merciless light. The shadows fled. And in that clear illumination, every face showed what it truly was. Relief, sorrow, triumph, shame. Poirot closed the diary with a soft thud. Finita la commedia, he murmured. The comedy is finished. But in Singapore, in 1936, the real tragedy, the fall of the impregnable fortress, was only beginning. Chapter 10. The Last Entry. 3 days after the reconstruction, Singapore sweltered under a sky the colour of polished brass. Major Alistair Finch had been quietly removed to Outram Jail in the night. No trial spectacle, no newspapers yet. The Empire preferred its traitors to vanish with as little fuss as its scandals. The Union Jack still flew over Government House, but it hung heavier now, as though it too felt the weight of what had almost been lost. Hercule Poirot stood alone in the ballroom at dawn, watching two Malay houseboys carefully lift the lid of the Grand Steinway. The piano had not been played since the governor's last reception. Dust lay thick on the keys, and the strings vibrated faintly in the humid air like the nerves of a frightened animal. There, Poirot said softly, beneath the sounding board, wrapped in oilskin. The older houseboy reached in gingerly and drew out a red morocco volume, gold clasp gleaming, The Missing Diary. Poirot took it with reverent fingers as though it were a sacred relic. He dismissed the boys, waited until their bare feet had pattered away down the marble corridor, then carried the diary to the long bar at Raffles. Deserted at this hour, punkers motionless, only the ghosts of 1,000 whiskies lingering in the air, he ordered a creme de menthe, bright and absurd against the teak, and opened the diary to the final entry. 14th October 1936. If you read this, Poirot, and I pray the Ranchi brings you here in time, know that I have failed the Empire for years, through weakness and vanity. Finch has been selling us to the Japanese since '34. I discovered it only last week. Coded cables hidden in his quarters, yen deposits in Hong Kong. I confronted him tonight. He laughed, said Singapore is a cardboard fortress, and the Japs will walk in when they please. Said I was too late, that half the general staff are in it too, or too blind to see. I am taking the only way out left to a man who has woken too late. Forgive me for the clumsiness of the staging. I must make it look like suicide, or Finch will destroy the evidence before an investigation begins. The little grey cells will see through it. They must. Tell Cynthia. No, tell her nothing. She never loved me, only the position. Tell Penelope her loyalty was the one clean thing in this whole dirty decade. Tell Evelyn I am sorry for choosing Empire over her all those years ago. The pain is worse tonight. Or perhaps it is shame. If England falls because of what I left undone, let this diary be my atonement. Reginald Hawthorne Poirot closed the book gently. A single tear, uncharacteristic, almost embarrassing, gathered in the corner of one green eye. He brushed it away with a gloved finger. Mon vieux, he murmured to the empty bar, you were not the hero they will make you out to be. But you were a man, finally, and that is rarer than heroism. He finished the creme de menthe in one delicate sip, then carried the diary to Inspector Sharp in his office at the Central Station. Burn it, Poirot said simply. Sharp stared. But the evidence of one traitor we already have in chains. The rest, non. Some names in those pages are still powerful. Let them sleep. The war that is coming will expose them soon enough. Better a quiet hanging now than a panic that weakens us further. Sharp hesitated, then fed the diary page by page into the brazier. The flames took the red Morocco eagerly, curling the gold clasp like paper. For a moment, the room smelled of burning leather and empire. That afternoon, Lady Cynthia departed for Europe on the Conte Verde, dressed in mourning black that became her far too well. At the quay, she offered Poirot a gloved hand. You gave me my freedom after all, little man. Thank you. Poirot bowed. Freedom, madame, is sometimes the most expensive inheritance. Dr. Evelyn Liang saw him off at the hospital steps. She pressed a small jade Buddha into his palm. For luck, she said, and forgiveness. He closed her fingers over it instead. Keep it, Dr. S. You will need it more than I. The Japanese are coming. Singapore will need healers more than detectives. Lim Hock. Anne sent a case of 1928 Pol Roger and a note. The reforms passed this morning. The colony owes you a debt it will never acknowledge. Typical. Miss Penelope Gray came last. Eyes still red but steady now. I'm going home to Sussex, she said. To a cottage with hollyhocks and no secrets. Poirot kissed her hand, an old-world gesture that made her blush. You deserve roses, mademoiselle, and peace. On the Ranchi, sailing at sunset, Poirot stood at the rail as Singapore receded. The go-downs, the shop-houses, the green islands like emeralds on blue silk. The heat lessened with every turn of the screw. Hastings joined him, already in flannels, face pink with excitement. "Well, old chap, another triumph, though I confess I'll miss the curry." Poirot did not answer at once. He was watching the wake of the ship, white against the darkening water. In this case, mon ami, there was no triumph, only tragedy delayed. Singapore thinks itself impregnable, but I have seen the cracks. Finch was only one traitor. There will be others. And when the storm comes, he raised his small glass of crème de menthe to the dying light. "To truth," he said quietly, "however late it arrives in the tropics, and to those who find courage at the 11th hour." The ship steamed south toward Fremantle, carrying Hercule Poirot away from the heat and the lies and the smell of frangipani that would haunt his dreams for years. Behind them, in the gathering dusk, the lights of Singapore blinked on one by one. Beautiful, fragile, doomed. And in Outram Jail, Major Alistair Finch sat in his cell and waited for the short drop and the sudden stop, wondering if the little Belgian had been right about the ink after all.